Billionaire's shocking test on staff reveals unexpected truth about a maid's incredible purchase. Maria's heart raced as whispers ricocheted off the opulent walls of Carter Hargrove's mansion. The grand foyer, with its soaring ceilings and polished marble floors reflecting the luxurious light, masked the deep-seated tremors that punctured her reality. Today was different. It felt electric. As she scrubbed the floor, elbow-deep in her daily chores, the unmistakable buzz of ambition filled the air. Carter had announced a company-wide challenge, urging his employees to unleash their creativity. She was invisible, yet the very announcement sparked a fire in her to break free from the shackles of her job. Could she dare to dream amidst the arrogance? For years Maria had devoted herself to her son, Alex, who excelled beyond his years. She longed for the day when she could provide him with the life he deserved, a life anchored in possibility rather than sacrifice. Yet here she was, surrounded by highly qualified suits, who laughed at the notion of her being anything but a maid. Each snicker twisted deep within her, an explosive reminder of her status. But her mother's voice echoed in her thoughts, urging her not to underestimate simplicity. She hesitated, feeling the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders. What if her dreams were mere folly? But every evening, after Alex went to bed, Maria gathered remnants from the kitchen, vinegar, baking soda, and herbs from her sparse garden. She experimented late into the night, hoping to create natural cleaning products that would rival the harsh chemicals crooned about by those far more accomplished than her. As she toiled under the fading glow of her small lamp, her frustration ebbed with each new discovery, yet doubt crept deeper with every passing day. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The atmosphere among the company staff grew thicker with tension, simmering with condescension toward anyone outside their corporate bubble. Maria felt trapped in a chrysalis, her dreams stifled by the condescending glances of those who raced toward recognition. She questioned her worth as the weight of their disregard piled atop her. Each look of dismissal pushed her closer to the edge, where the urgency of her hopes fought against the reality of her bleakness. Then came the unexpected twist, as the meeting's agenda shifted for the billionaire himself, sending shockwaves through the mansion. Chaos erupted, leaving everyone on edge. It was a moment Maria didn't see coming. In the fray, it became clear the world could collapse just as swiftly as the structure that housed their delusions of superiority. With adrenaline surging through her veins, she felt her moment calling. The fragile line between her existence and the grandeur around her blurred, and for the first time, she turned her fears into resolve. As she stood, trembling but resolute, anticipation swirled in the room. All eyes turned towards her, frozen in disbelief at the maid daring to rise. It was now or never. Could she brave the scorn to present her untested eco-friendly concoctions, raw and unrefined? The question hung in the air, a desperate volley that pronounced itself against the backdrop of gilded elegance. Would she accept the chance to challenge their world, or crumble beneath the weight of their expectations? The fate of her aspirations, her connection to her son, throbbed tangibly as she faced a world that impacted her more profoundly than they could ever realize. Maria stood there, breath caught in her throat as silence enveloped the room. The stares of her colleagues bore into her, and she felt the flush of blood rise to her cheeks, but it wasn't shame that surged within her. It was a burgeoning belief that while she had always blurred into the backdrop, she had something important to say, something worth hearing. The question echoed in her mind. What did she have to lose by speaking up? This wasn't just about her cleaning products. It was a chance to embody the tenacity she had cultivated year after year, the resolve that kept her going through the long nights of trial and error. In that moment, faced with the refined glances of the corporate elite, she tapped into a courage she had hidden beneath layers of fear. "I have something I believe is worth sharing," she began, her voice surprisingly steady, shaking off waves of uncertainty. "For too long I've been labeled as just the maid, and I refuse to let that define my contributions." A collective gasp resonated through the room, the very notion of a domestic worker asserting herself sending ripples of disbelief. "A few months ago I started experimenting with eco-friendly cleaning products that are safe for the environment and effective." She lifted a modest bottle from her pocket, the liquid inside glistening like a small beacon of light. I've created formulas using simple ingredients, things we all overlook but have the power to impact our daily lives positively. Her heart thundered as she took in the stunned faces of those once dismissive. For every nod of disbelief, she locked eyes with another who was shifting on their feet. A glimmer of intrigue stirred within those who had previously lived in a monotone spectrum of privilege. Everyone's rushing to innovate, she continued, the thrill of her voice rising above the encompassing quiet. But I've learned that sometimes the most innovative ideas come from the simplest places. I may not have degrees or titles, but I have creativity, perseverance, and the drive to make a difference. With each syllable, she felt a weight lift. Years of being overlooked, of being told her ideas didn't matter, were unraveling. There was a moment when even Carter's eyes widened, his gaze sharpening, interest peaked. The planet is calling for more than just superficial change. What if we could create an impact in our own homes, a movement that begins with something we all use daily? Her breath caught as she finished, her pulse radiating with the hope that perhaps change was possible, not only in her life, but within their disconnected world as well. The room erupted in chatter and whispers. Part of her felt vulnerable, exposed to their scrutiny, while another part, a fiercer, unyielding version of herself, welcomed the attention. This was her moment, a catalyst for change in her life, and perhaps in theirs. Carter stepped forward, his expression shifting from surprise to something resembling respect. Were they actually considering her words? "Why don't you present your products to the team?" he asked, and Maria could barely believe what she had just heard. As discussions brewed around her, Maria felt a fiery resolve heating her blood. She could influence more than just the way they cleaned their homes. She could influence their perception of her and elevate her family's future. Yet as the conversation swirled, a lingering doubt nipped at her heels. What if they rejected her ideas? What if she had overstepped, miscalculating her newfound boldness? Determined to push through the crack of self-doubt, she pressed on, ready to devise a plan to showcase her products properly. But beneath her newfound confidence, uncertainty loomed heavy. Would she navigate this world of business complexities effectively, or would her dreams shatter against the wall of reality? With her heart pounding and adrenaline coursing through her veins, a challenge stirred within her. How could she turn this opportunity into something sustainable? Could she really build a business from a dream that had started so humbly? The clock was ticking, and as she grasped firm control of her aspirations, she felt a flicker of hope illuminating the darkness that had long clouded her path. Each decision ahead would matter, but the choices were hers to make. The time had come to escalate the challenge and define her future. Where did she go from here? Maria's mind raced with possibilities as she prepared for what lay ahead. Cardboard boxes of supplies surrounded her workspace, her tiny corner of the office bustling with a newfound energy that seemed to mimic the fluttering of her heart. Each box contained not just products but symbols of her resolve. They represented the countless hours she had spent perfecting formulas, the small victories she had claimed in silence, and the doubts she was ready to cast aside. As she glanced around the room, Maria's eyes settled on the half-finished presentation slide on her laptop. The bright colors and vivid images of her eco-friendly products were a stark contrast to the drab, gray fabric of corporate life that had enveloped her for too long. She tightened her grip on the mouse, her fingers trembling with anticipation. That gasp of disbelief echoed in her mind, and she felt the determination swell within her. It was no longer about simply sharing her products. It was about changing how they perceived her, and arguably how she perceived herself. Yet that determination was accompanied by a deeper layer of anxiety. What if the presentation collapsed under scrutiny? Would her lack of business acumen serve as an anchor rather than a sail? As fleeting images of her childhood, picking herbs with her grandmother and crafting potions from her imagination, surfaced, Maria realized that she had always possessed the creativity to redefine what possibilities could be. The doubt was insidious, creeping into her thoughts like a chill settling in. "I need to trust myself," she murmured to the stillness of the office. Each step she took now was a step toward her own reclamation. She began typing notes, not just facts about her products, but stories, narratives of discovery, and the inspiration that had led her to this point. The emotional impact was as vital as data points to persuade her audience of executives. Later, she logged onto a video call with Carter. His eyes fixed on her while she clicked through her presentation, absorbing every detail of Maria's creation. Would he see the authenticity she poured into her work, or dismiss it as mere sentimental fluff? She illustrated how her formulas not only cleansed but restored, and she laid out the cost savings against commercial alternatives. The data was compelling, and slowly she felt the walls of doubt beginning to break down. "Maria, this is impressive," Carter finally said, his brows furrowing in thought. "You've really considered the market." His tone shifted, a flicker of something more than interest igniting in his gaze. "Thank you," she replied, her heart racing. "I think there's a real opportunity here, not just for profit but for change." But the lingering voices in her mind cautioned her still. Was she chasing an unattainable dream cloaked in the guise of professional ambition? At that moment, facing Carter, the stakes felt higher than ever. He was a gatekeeper to the realm she had glimpsed, a world vibrating with potential and prosperity. "Next week we can test these products with a focus group," Carter suggested. "But you'll need to be prepared for the questions. Tough ones." Maria's stomach tightened. This was what she had craved. A shot at being seen, not just as a maid, but as a maverick, an innovator. But with the prospect of exposure came the tantalizing taste of fear. "Of course, I'll prepare thoroughly," she nodded, resolving inwardly to give it everything she had. As their call ended, the thought of facing criticism sent a ripple through her confidence, but she silenced it. This was her moment, her responsibility to uphold, not just for herself, but for every small dreamer who had ever learned to imagine beyond their circumstances. But as she started her work for the focus group, an uncomfortable realization washed over her. Was she ready to challenge the status quo, even if it meant confronting the very people she once worked alongside, those who had viewed her as just the maid? With a deep breath, she opened her notebook and began to draft a plan, fueled by her unwavering spirit, both excited and terrified of the obstacles ahead. What if, in this pursuit, she uncovered aspects of herself that had remained dormant? The thought led her to explore hidden talents and buried passions. As she prepared to step forward into this uncharted business territory, questions began to form. Could she reclaim her identity while challenging systemic perceptions? The clock was ticking, and the mounting pressure only intensified her resolve. She felt the pull of destiny urging her forward, yet the shadows of her old self lingered, whispering challenges she still needed to face. What awaited Maria as she navigated this treacherous terrain of ambition and self-discovery? Would she emerge victorious, redefined, or face the risk of losing it all? Maria woke the next day with a nagging sensation of urgency. The familiar hum of the breakfast cafe downstairs reached her through the window, drawing her back to the mundane. She scrolled through her notes, crammed with market research and product benefits, but her mind struggled to focus. The deeper message she needed to convey still eluded her. As she ran through the components of her pitch, she recognized that each element aimed to reflect not just the functional aspects of her product line, but also her journey, a testament to resilience. Yet doubt simmered beneath her eagerness. She had never had the chance to articulate her vision before, let alone defend it against the scrutiny of her peers. In front of the bathroom mirror, Maria rehearsed her opening line. "Today, I'm not just presenting products, I'm unveiling a part of myself." The reflection that stared back appeared both hopeful and fearful. What if her words fell flat? What if the presence of her former colleagues stifled her courage? Determination bolstered her, enough to propel her forward into the day ahead. At the office, the atmosphere felt charged, thick with expectation. The focus group would dig deep, peeling away layers of carefully constructed confidence, exposing vulnerabilities she wasn't sure she could endure. As the group began to amass in the conference room, she shifted in her chair, noting the skeptical glances from some of her co-workers. Maria consumed the sight of them chatting about budgets and quarterly goals like a bitter pill stuck in her throat. Would they be allies or adversaries? The answer would shape her next move. With the room buzzing with chatter, she tapped her pen against the table to draw attention, and her heart pounded. "Thank you for being here. Today, I want to share not just products that cleanse, but those that can transform lives." As she spoke, the audience's expression shifted from skepticism to curiosity. The visuals of her eco-friendly products and heartfelt narratives filled the screen, each story an intimate tapestry woven from her upbringing. Yet midway through a vivid anecdote about her grandmother, she noticed Juan, a former co-worker, crossing his arms and seemingly rolling his eyes. His body language screamed indifference. Instead of retreating, awareness ignited within her. She had to confront this head-on. "I understand these products may not be traditional, and they pose questions we might be uncomfortable addressing," she said, locking eyes with Juan. "But it's time we reconsider the impact of our choices, both on ourselves and the world around us." Silence fell as everyone absorbed her words. Disquiet settled in the air as Maria sensed the tension shift. With renewed resolve, she pushed further, sharing not just the benefits of the products, but why they mattered to her personally. The simplicity of her story, disguised as a maid, yet with dreams shaped in her youth, echoed deeply. Each revelation bonded her listeners, slowly transforming skepticism into a flicker of understanding. After the presentation, the panel's questions unfurled like petals. How would you ensure sustainability in production? What makes you think consumers will choose your line over established brands? Instead of shunning the inquiries, Maria embraced them. For every tough question, she formulated a response rooted in her experiences and research. The criticism invigorated her rather than deterred. She found her footing, unraveling layers of her knowledge while countering concerns, carefully deflecting back to the essence of her vision. Empowerment through responsibility. As the session drew to a close, she could feel the group's perception of her evolving. Empowered by the challenge, she realized she was no longer just fighting for acceptance. She was standing her ground, reaffirming her belonging and right to voice her vision. When the group thanked her and began to disperse, she breathlessly replayed the moment. Juan approached. His demeanor had softened. "You did well, Maria," he admitted, almost begrudgingly. The compliment, though tempered by surprise, felt like a small triumph. In the aftermath, Maria felt exhaustion wash over her, tinged with exhilaration. What had been a looming fear had transformed into a step toward greater self-actualization. Yet as she reflected, doubt resurfaced. Had she truly made an impression, or would the lingering hierarchy close back in, pushing her dreams further beyond reach? The uncertainty draped over her like a shadow. As she gathered her paperwork, a nagging thought remained. Was her newfound confidence strong enough to withstand the lingering influences of those who doubted her? The tension rippled, anticipating her next confrontation. Maria took a deep breath, contemplating the upcoming challenges that would test her resolve. The time had come to confront what lay beyond the focus group, a potential reshaping of not just her career, but her very identity. Where would this newfound courage take her next? Maria spent the night turning over the day's events in her mind. Each interaction with her peers had left a permanent stain on her confidence, dark yet illuminating. The roller coaster of approval and skepticism had invigorated her desire to push beyond the norm and explore her own boundaries. The next morning, she could still taste the adrenaline coursing through her. She was no longer just a woman with a vision. She felt like a warrior on the battlefield of the corporate world, and her resolve thickened with each passing hour. Yet, another day loomed ahead, one laced with tension as she prepared for her next meeting, this time with the company's executive board. They hadn't witnessed her presentation, but they were the gatekeepers. Their opinions would either elevate or dismantle everything she had worked toward. Standing at the bus stop, she turned her focus inward. It was one thing to present to a focus group. Dissecting her vision in front of seasoned executives required a different set of skills. They would have their metrics and rigid structures. She needed to cultivate a plan that would not only showcase her product line effectively, but also connect it to the company's overarching goals. The business acumen she possessed was rusty, but it was there. She had conquered doubt. Now it was time to strategically wield her insights. As she entered the conference room, the atmosphere electrified by expectation, Maria sensed their scrutiny. The board members had wide-ranging backgrounds, each with their own predictions about her worthiness. Instead of feeling oppressed by their stares, she allowed their intensity to empower her. She offered a tight smile and introduced herself, keeping her voice steady. "Thank you all for this opportunity. I'm excited to outline a vision that aligns our brand with sustainability and market differentiation." With each slide she presented, those moments of doubt faded into reflections of her conviction. She recounted stories about her journey and triumph over adversity, which seamlessly connected her purpose to the products she was passionate about. Then came the question that hung heavy in the air. Why should we invest in these products when established brands dominate the market? It was a pivotal moment. Maria recalled the hesitation she felt in the focus group, but this time she wrapped her thoughts in clarity and conviction. Because the industry is evolving and the consumer landscape is shifting toward authenticity and purpose, my products represent not only quality, but also a commitment to responsible consumerism. She watched as the board members exchanged glances, evaluating her response. The tension in the room slightly subsided, and for the first time, she felt not as an outsider, but as a formidable contender. As discussion ensued, Maria found herself deftly navigating their inquiries, revealing her innate capability to confront weaknesses while branding her strengths. Their questions evolved. They probed deeper into aspects she hadn't fully considered, but her knowledge began to assert itself naturally. Her responses flowed, revealing a hidden confidence that transformed the board's skepticism into intrigue. Yet as the conclusion neared, one board member, a veteran with a penchant for ruthless interrogation, challenged her with an unexpected question. What if we were to gauge the real efficacy of your products through a competition? A test where effectiveness matters above all else. The gears in Maria's mind ground to a halt. A competition? The implications rattled her nerves. This wasn't merely a theoretical debate about market sustainability. It implied a direct confrontation with the giants of the industry, experiencing scrutiny that could obliterate her newfound confidence. With silence wrapping around her, Maria realized this moment was pivotal. Did she have the courage to take on a test that would expose her products to empirical scrutiny? Was she ready to face potential embarrassment if she failed? Her heart raced, heavy with conflict. This challenge could launch her career forward or destroy everything she had built in the minds of the board. But something deeper stirred within her, a resolute voice whispering that growth thrived through discomfort. "I accept the challenge," she declared, her pulse pounding. The determination in her response reverberated off the walls, drawing the attention of the board members. She stared down the intimidating figure who had questioned her, defying the dread that lay beneath. She knew this path could lead to glory or defeat, but either way, she had to walk it. As she stepped out of the room, exhilaration and fear danced within her. This path would test everything: her commitment to her vision, her ability to innovate, and her capacity to handle the truth of her creations. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the brink of something monumental, a test of not just her product, but of her identity itself. What would the outcome reveal? As Maria walked the corridor, the tension of the boardroom dissipated into the air, only to be replaced by an electric anticipation. She replayed the challenge in her mind, as if saying the words aloud could solidify her resolve in a tangible way. "I accept the challenge." The weight of those words was heavy, yet liberating. Each step she took propelled her further away from the safety of familiarity and closer to a crucible of innovation and self-discovery. Her enthusiasm flickered with trepidation. Maria had always been an idealist, but now she faced the stark reality of competition. Not just any competition, but a head-to-head battle with established brands that commanded the market's respect. She was going to need strategies that transcended mere aspirations. This was about substance, efficacy, and consumer trust, each of which posed a challenge that could unveil harsh truths about her vision and her capabilities. Back at her desk, Maria began to draft a plan of action. A competition required metrics, benchmarks, and a robust framework to demonstrate her product's standing against the competition. She had data from focus groups, but that was just the beginning. She needed real-world testing, a way to provide concrete evidence that her creations were not only viable, but superior. She could feel the exhilaration mix heavily with the fluttering nerves rising in her stomach. She spent hours researching her competitors, studying their strengths, weaknesses, and market positioning. As she mapped this out, it became clear that learning from those giants wasn't just a method of understanding their products. It was a golden opportunity to turn their successes into stepping stones for her own rise. The boards of the best companies were lined with accolades, but Maria's vision was driven by authenticity, not accolades. Her products were rooted in sustainability and ethical production, and that would be her edge. Motivated by restless energy, she scribbled notes, constructed strategies, and formulated a timeline. She would need to test her products rigorously. Was their eco-conscious formulation as effective as she believed? The answers intrigued her, yet a creeping doubt snaked quietly into her thoughts. What if her products fell short? What if she weren't ready for the harsh scrutiny? The insistent ticking of the clock became a reminder of urgency, of a deadline she had unknowingly set while accepting the challenge. There was no room for complacency now. This time, her heart aligned with her resolve. She could only rely on her creativity to overcome obstacles, nurturing the thought that each misstep would be a learning experience rather than a failure. Strikingly, she had transformed the essence of fear into fuel. In the following days, her approach shifted. The competition wasn't an existential threat, but rather an invitation to evolve. Maria initiated partnerships with local organizations that shared her values, leveraging their insights and experiences to strengthen her products and refine her strategies. Each new connection not only broadened her network, but revitalized her excitement. Through detailed discussions with chemists and sustainability experts, Maria discovered facets of her product line that could be enhanced, elevating her initial ideas into something more profound. Each conversation unveiled her hidden strengths and expanded her understanding of her work. The once daunting challenge morphed into a collaborative quest, blurring the lines between professional growth and personal transformation. As her conviction solidified, Maria sensed a pivotal moment approaching within her mind, one where confidence transcended the whispers of doubt. Her identity was shifting before her eyes. She was no longer just a risk-taker. She was an innovator ready to confront the established norms of the industry. But just as her preparation peaked, an unexpected email slid into her inbox, containing a detailed briefing on the competition format she hadn't anticipated. The stakes were higher than she had imagined, the rules more intricate. In that instant, uncertainty rushed back, a stark reminder of the fragility of confidence. Would she rise to the occasion once more, or would this twist unravel her newfound strength? Maria stared at the screen, the question echoing in her mind, a challenge layered on top of the original. The tension of uncertainty felt almost suffocating, leaving her wondering how much of her identity was entwined with the outcome that lay just beyond her grasp. The clock kept ticking, driving her forward, but now the question shifted. How much was she willing to risk for the vision she so fervently embraced? As Maria sat on the edge of decision, the thought loomed large. This could either be her grand debut or an overwhelming disaster that would redefine who she believed she was. Maria inhaled deeply, motivation battling with hesitation. The email sat like a loaded gun on her desk, the details whispering promises of both peril and possibility. Could she transform this potential setback into a new strategy? The very thought invigorated her, and she opened the email once more, focusing intently on the specifics of the competition. The first major point struck her like a thunderclap, the introduction of a consumer voting element that could sway results dramatically. To win not just on merit, but by popular vote added layers of complexity she hadn't normalized into her preparation. How could she swaddle the essence of her brand in public perception without losing the authenticity she had worked so hard to cultivate? Maria felt the urgency of the situation transforming into action. First, she needed to understand consumer behavior on a deeper level, to anticipate their preferences and reactions. She dove into market research with vigor, studying trends and shifts that influenced buyer decisions. What cost their loyalty? What made them swipe left on one product while gushing over another? It was a web of knowledge she now realized she needed to master. Several late nights blurred into early mornings as she cultivated a rich understanding of her target demographic. Pie charts transformed into a compelling visual narrative of their desires and biases. Each finding fueled her strategies, which in turn ignited her determination. She crafted impactful marketing campaigns that addressed their hopes, fears, and values, placing her products in dynamic contexts that resonated emotionally. Amidst this whirlwind, one insight stood out: a need for transparency. Maria projected that by fostering an open conversation about the testing process involving consumers in the story, she might harness their support. Hiding behind polished marketing gloss simply wouldn't cut it in a world that increasingly craved honesty and authenticity. She began crafting glossy flyers and attention-grabbing social media posts that detailed her product development, inviting customers to join her on this journey. As she refined her approach, Maria realized that her vision had evolved dramatically. It was no longer just about producing a superior product. It was about weaving a narrative that connected with consumers personally. But with every revelation came the unsettling realization that her journey was no longer solely hers. Was she ready to share the mantle of her vision with the audience? The question lingered in her mind as she wrapped up her marketing pitches. She could sense the weight of expectation pressing down, expectations of herself and those she sought to inspire. After all, at this stage, she was not simply presenting a product, but an ethos driven by sustainability and ethical production. Yet uncertainty nagged her again. Would her authenticity resonate with the audience, or would they see through it as a mere marketing tactic? Her phone buzzed, breaking her reverie. It was a text from one of her collaborators, inviting her to a showcase event. This was where potential partners and influencers would congregate, a vital opportunity that could either solidify her presence in the market or swallow her whole. A cascade of thoughts collided in her mind. The timing was precarious. She was halfway through her product testing, balancing on the precipice of readiness. Was it too soon, or conversely, too ideal? This was an opportunity to gain insight from industry veterans, but could also expose her vulnerabilities. Could she handle the scrutiny at this stage of her evolution? As she grappled with the decision, Maria recognized a meaningful shift within herself. The challenge no longer terrified her, it ignited a flame of resolve. This event might just become the crucible in which her newly forged identity would be tested. Could she seize the moment and influence her narrative instead of being swept away by it? Deciding that retreat was not an option, Maria replied to the text with a resounding yes. The next phase in her journey was about to unfold, and she welcomed the uncertainty with open arms, anxious to confront whatever awaited her. But just as confidence surged within her, a culmination of all her hard work and learning, a new email appeared. Subject: Important announcement regarding the competition. Maria's heart raced. What more could change? She opened it, fear and anticipation coalescing into an unshakable tension, her future hanging in the balance. As the email populated her screen, Maria's breath hitched, her pulse quickened with uncertainty. What could possibly demand such an urgent announcement? Keeping her eyes fixed on the screen, she scrolled down, scanning for critical details that could reshape her strategy yet again. The content unfurled with the somberness of executive jargon, outlining changes to the competition's rules. The revelation struck like a cold wind. In light of recent developments, we are now requiring a live presentation of your project to the panel of judges, alongside an audience participation segment. The air thickened with tension in her office. Suddenly, public perception wasn't just abstract. It was concrete, and the stakes had never felt higher. Now, she would not only have to present her product, but also muster the engagement of potential voters in real time. Tentative confidence wobbled as she pondered how to translate her meticulous research into a compelling live narrative. Maria ran her fingers through her hair, heart racing. This new challenge unveiled an unsettling truth. She would have to face the crowd, far from the calculated safety of digital marketing metrics. What if her audience didn't resonate with her vision? Despite the gnawing anxiety, another realization sparked within her. This was an opportunity to genuinely connect, to embody the authenticity she championed so fervently. She shut her eyes momentarily, envisioning her presentation, revisiting the principles that fueled her ambition. Wouldn't this be the chance to emphasize the transparency she had so diligently crafted? However, the idea of live interaction triggered a cascade of self-doubt. Enduring the unpredictability of audience reactions felt primal. Meticulously honed statistical insights flashing in her mind turned irrelevant. How well could she read the room? What if she faltered in front of both experts and the crowd, her narrative unraveling in real time? Maria stood from her desk, her footsteps echoing in the quiet space as she paced. The looming presentation demanded an equally assertive response from her. Gathering her thoughts amid a whirlwind of emotions, she began jotting down bullet points on a whiteboard, emphasizing critical aspects of her product and its story. Her determination surged as she mapped out a storyline that harmonized her personal journey with the audience's experience. But as she drafted her message, an unsettling reminder surfaced. Vulnerability was necessary for authenticity, yet it exposed her to judgment. Was she willing to lay herself bare in such a public forum? The question loomed. A test of courage wavered in the air. Digging deep, she realized that genuine connection could only arise from revealing her own struggles and triumphs. Infusing her presentation with that honesty could carve a pathway through the facade the competition could create. A recollection of past failures stirred inside her, motivating her to commit to transparency, to remind herself, not everyone in the audience would be her ally, but some would undoubtedly empathize. The night before the presentation, sleep evaded her. She stood before the mirror, rehearsing her lines, practicing the authenticity she would exude. Each time she stumbled over her words, a flicker of doubt would spark. Yet, with every iteration, Maria grew stronger, more resolute. Her narrative was alive, pulsating with the energy of her evolution. As she continued to refine her pitch, the emotional complexities of sharing her story felt undeniably exhilarating. With every rehearsed delivery, doubts were met with increasing resolve. The moment finally came. She stood backstage, adrenaline coursing through her veins, her heart a steady drumfill of determination. Reflecting on her journey, Maria recognized this was not merely a test of her product, it was a revelation of who she had become. And as she stepped out into the spotlight, a feeling of clarity washed over her. If she faltered, it would be a moment of learning, just another chapter in her growth journey. Her narrative had a life of its own now, and the audience would either join her journey or not. Before she could fully process her thoughts, a loud noise erupted from the audience, a mix of thrill and excitement. The challenge that awaited her wasn't just about winning a competition, It was a defining moment to reclaim her narrative. But just as she poised to deliver her opening line, the lights dimmed even further, obscuring the faces she'd come to brave, leaving her in nothing but darkness and the weight of the unknown. What awaited her in the shadows? The darkness pressed in around Maria, an enveloping silence that deepened the thrum of her heartbeat. Each second felt extended, the world beyond the stage dissolving into a haze of uncertainty. Her mind raced, grappling with the void behind the bright lights. The absence of familiar faces intensified her fear, but it also ignited a spark of determination. This was the crucible, and she was not going to allow fear of the unknown to dictate her worth. In that encapsulated moment, Maria recalled her training, the countless hours spent studying her market, crafting the emotional beats of her project. She inhaled sharply, closing her eyes as she gathered her thoughts like a shield. The audience waited, and she could almost feel their collective curiosity reaching out into the dark, urging her to break the barrier of silence. The weight of expectation began to shift from a suffocating burden to a vital source of energy. She knew her product inside out, the specs, the benefits, and the heart behind it. What she needed now was to bridge that information with the storytelling prowess she had developed. With a deep breath, she steadied herself and recalled a pivotal moment on her entrepreneurial journey, a staggering setback she had once faced that forged her resilience. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, voice steadying as it cut through the lethargic air. "Have you ever felt like everything was crumbling around you? I have. Just last year I faced a failure that turned my world upside down. But that moment taught me lessons I could only learn in struggle." The crowd stirred, responding to her vulnerability. It was a tightrope walk between fear and fortitude, but she could feel the thread of connection beginning to weave itself. With each word, she allowed herself to peel away layers of self-doubt, recounting her journey punctuated by failures and triumphs. She illuminated the thought processes and creative experiments that gave rise to her product, underscoring the value of perseverance and adaptability. The notion of authenticity, once a flickering ember in her mind, became a roaring fire fueling her presentation. As her narrative flowed, the dim lights began to brighten, and gradually the audience materialized into focus. She could see faces, some curious, some skeptical, others resonating with her plight. It was a human exchange, one that transcended the specificities of her product. It was about shared experiences, the universal quest for purpose, and her mission to create something meaningful. But fleeting moments of doubt dogged her. Was this truly resonating, or were they simply humoring her? She paused, the silence stretching, and in that pause, something remarkable happened. A few hands went up, questions started to form, and voices bubbled forth with intrigue. The audience wanted to engage, to ask about her vision, her failures, and how she transcended them. It was the real-time interaction she had feared but now clung to with enthusiasm. "Let's explore this together," she proclaimed, invigorated. "What do you want to know? How can I share not just my story but our potential forward?" This was a luminous shift, audience participation, a collaborative inquiry that fed her spirit and imbued the room with energy. She was no longer merely an actor on a stage. She was a catalyst igniting conversation. The exchange unfolded with a fierceness Maria had not anticipated. Questions poured forth, some probing into her methods, others about her long-term vision. Each inquiry was a chance to solidify her stance, to validate her purpose, to frame her entrepreneurial journey as a mosaic of resilience rather than defeat. The conversation turned dynamic and spirited, her confidence swelling with each interaction. This was no longer just a presentation. It was a dialogue, a shared exploration of dreams and potential. Yet as exhilaration engulfed her, a sudden sharpness sliced through the atmosphere. A voice chimed in, laden with authority. "But if this is so fail-safe, why are you so willing to put your raw emotions on display?" It was a challenge, an unexpected jab at the very heart of her premise. Eyes shot to Maria, anticipation palpable. Did they perceive her authenticity as weakness? How would she navigate this confrontation? Steeling her posture, Maria took a breath, recalling her journey. She was no longer just a product developer. She was a witness to her evolution, the composed architect of her own narrative. The time had come for her to face this pivotal moment head-on. With clarity emerging from the chaos, she readied herself for a profoundly personal reveal. What would this test ultimately reveal about her, and could she harness it to galvanize the audience into true understanding? Maria stood firm in the spotlight, the palpable tension swirling around her. It was a moment of reckoning, where her resolve met the probing skepticism of an audience eager for authenticity. Silence enveloped her for a heartbeat, and she allowed the weight of her experiences to shape her response. This was not just a defense of her ideas, it was an unveiling of her very identity. "What you see before you is not just a product, but the culmination of my struggles," she began, her voice steadied by the gravity of her words. "Every great innovation comes from a desire to solve a problem, to improve upon what already exists." She allowed her memories to flood back. The long nights spent perfecting her eco-friendly formulas, the doubts that gnawed at her spirit, and the fear of being dismissed. These products represent not just effective cleaning solutions, but a hope that we can all choose better for the environment. As she spoke, the faces of the audience began to shift, from doubt to intrigue, from skepticism to recognition that she was not simply presenting products, she was sharing her story of resilience. The challenge they posed, however pointed, pushed her deeper into her narrative. She was no longer just a maid with an idea. She had transformed through her journey into an innovator, ready to impact lives. "I don't shy away from my emotions because they inspire the passion behind my work," she continued. "Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's the foundation of connection. When you create from the heart, the message resonates far beyond numbers on a page." It was in this moment, filled with authenticity, that Maria noticed some heads nodding, an encouraging sign that her words were landing. The audience interaction peaked, as many began to engage with real feedback. It transformed the atmosphere into a dynamic conversation rather than a mere presentation, galvanizing the transformation she had so painstakingly crafted. Each question asked gave her a platform to demonstrate her knowledge, her product's efficacy, and the heart behind every decision she made. She addressed the skeptical voice that had challenged her. "I realize this journey carries risks, but every risk is an opportunity for growth. The companies that have thrived over time are those willing to adapt, to innovate, and perhaps most importantly, to be genuine. That's what I'm offering today." A supportive murmur rippled through the crowd. She could feel it, a connection forming between them all, bound by shared hopes and desires for better, cleaner futures. The once dim stage felt vibrant and alive, charged by the collective energy of a community who recognized the promise she embodied. As the session drew to a close, applause echoed throughout the room, mingled with warm applause and enthusiastic cheers. In that moment, Maria's heart swelled with an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had publicly faced the doubts that once choked her ambitions, yet here she was, recognized and celebrated not just as a maid, but as an innovative leader. "Thank you for hearing me," she said, her heart brimming with gratitude. "Let's change the narrative together." The panel debriefed her afterward, praising her enthusiasm and willingness to engage in real dialogue. A prominent executive leaned forward, eyes bright. "Your passion is palpable. It's clear you have a strong vision. I foresee great potential in your products." For the first time, Maria believed these words to be true. This climax marked the exhilarating emergence of her self-worth. No longer ensnared by the stigmas of her past, she felt buoyed by the recognition her journey had brought. As the event concluded, she stepped outside into the bright sunlight, where uncertainty no longer felt like an encroaching shadow, but an open door, a world brimming with infinite possibilities. Everything she had fought for was within reach. Maria was no longer trapped. She had become the embodiment of her dreams. As laughter echoed around her, Maria embraced the sunlight as a new beginning, a testament to her journey and the unwavering spirit she had discovered within herself. This was only the start. She was armed with the wisdom gained through trial, the strength to face more challenges ahead, and the clarity to launch her eco-friendly product line boldly. It was time not just to conquer, but to thrive, on her own terms, and with renewed authenticity. And for you reading this is your moment too. You need to subscribe now to our channel and not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the growth of such meaningful content. Comment your reactions and theories about Maria's journey and how it resonates with your personal aspirations. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and realize their potential in overcoming life's challenges. Don't wait even one more second to spread the message. Your support is vital.